Good to have you with us at this hour. I'm Daniel Choy here with the latest. North Korea has gone ahead with another missile launch, this one aimed at U.S. forces based in South Korea. The North's state media says the launch was carried out to coincide with the July 27th anniversary of the signing of the Armistice Agreement after the Korean War. It comes in defiance of a condemnation from the UN just 10 days ago. Our Yulian starts us off.
Pyongyang fired another missile into waters off its east coast on Saturday, a little over a week after the UN Security Council officially condemned North Korea for its previous series of missile launches in recent weeks. North Korea state media said Sunday that its leader Kim Jong-un had guided a rocket-firing drill the day before to simulate a strike on military bases in South Korea, where over 28,000 U.S. troops are stationed. This confirmed reports from Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff Saturday night that said a short-range missile, presumably a Scud-type missile, was fired into the East Sea from North Korea's western coast, near the de facto sea border between the two Koreas. The North state-run Korean Central News Agency says the launch was timed to coincide with the July 27th anniversary of the ceasefire agreement signed at the end of the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. Although the armistice means that North and South Korea are still technically at war, North Korea hails the day as a major national holiday, praising late leader Kim Il-sung for his achievement in bringing the country a victory in the Korean War. The Nodeong-Shinmun, the newspaper of the ruling Workers' Party of Korea, said in a front-page editorial on Sunday that the country should commemorate the victory by carrying out its military-first policy and strengthening its self-defense capability. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
Earlier this Sunday, the 61st anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, a ceremony was held at the Joint Security Area of Panmunjom to honor the sacrifices of those who gave their lives in the conflict. Our Kim Hyun-bin was there, and he files us this report.
The Korean War started on June 25, 1950, when the communist government in the north launched a surprise invasion of South Korea. The war ended 3 years later on July 27, 1953, with a ceasefire and the signing of an armistice agreement that divided the country. Korea marked the day on Sunday with a ceremony honoring the sacrifices of the hundreds of thousands who died in the conflict. The event was held at the Joint Security Area in Panmunjom, the exact location where the armistice agreement was signed 61 years ago. General Curtis Scaparrotti, the commander of the United Nations Command, was in attendance, along with other senior officials and Korean War veterans.
By striving to maintain the armistice, we are honoring the sacrifice of the almost 180,000 men and women who died while fighting under the UN flag. And we acknowledge the estimated 2.5 million civilians who also died during the Korean War. When we take steps to maintain stability and security in the region, we display our desire to never again incur such a great cost.
In the wake of the recent provocative acts from North Korea, General Scaparrotti also had a strong message for Pyongyang.
Their continued opposition and defiance of the United Nations Security Council resolutions, as well as the international community norms, is unacceptable. And it further isolates them from the international community, further deprives their people of any hope of a prosperity in the future.
This ceremony not only serves to mark the signing of the Armistice Agreement, but it's also a solemn reminder that the two Koreas are technically still at war. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News, Panmunjom.
The Korean government has announced plans to team up with China to launch joint surveillance against illegal fishing in waters shared by the two countries. Korea's Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries said Sunday that 2 to 3 joint inspection tours will be conducted during fishing seasons that attract a large number of Chinese boats. The agreement reached at a meeting in Weihai, China, will be implemented in 2015. China and Korea will start inspecting boats in the Yellow Sea in October. Korea has been working to stop illegal fishing in its waters for some time now. In 2012 alone, 467 Chinese boats were seized for illegal fishing. The Chinese fishermen confronted by Korean authorities often respond violently, leading to casualties on both sides. A recently unveiled government stimulus package will not have an immediate effect on the Korean economy. That's according to local analysts who are saying that's one big reason why they've lowered their third quarter earnings outlook for Korean companies. The combined outlook for operating profits for the country's 177 listed firms fell by over 5% in the past month, according to market researcher FN Guide on Sunday. Analysts had slashed estimates for about two-thirds of the listed companies. Hyundai Heavy Industries saw the biggest fall in its operating profit outlook by 53%. The outlook for Korea's third largest refiner, S-Oil Corporation, dropped by over 27%. Korea has topped another OECD ranking, this time in research and development funds. A report by the Korea Institute of Science and Technology Evaluation and Planning says Korea's R&D budget made up the highest percentage of GDP in 2013 among advanced nations. The numbers indicate the country's R&D intensity, or R&D expenditure as a percentage of GDP, came to 1.14%, beating Iceland and Finland for the top spot. It's a giant leap from 2004 when the figure for Korea was 0.74%. Korea spent $13.7 billion last year for governmental R&D projects, the sixth largest among the countries tallied. The United States spent $133.5 billion, followed by Japan, Germany, France, and Britain. The report is based on the main science and technology indicators as released by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development in June. Japanese financial firms have expanded their presence in the Korean market. Recent data shows Japanese lenders and savings banks now take up more than 55% and 15% of the market share in Korea. In the past, Japanese capital came into the domestic market through private lenders such as Apro Service Group's Rush and Cash. But starting in 2011, Japan began acquiring local savings banks hit hard by the global financial crisis. The Korean market has been a good place for the Japanese banks to improve their profit margins since savings banks offer a lower procurement interest rate than most lenders. Korea's financial authorities fear the expansion will cause chaos in the market, but say they are monitoring the changes and are prepared to take action if necessary. And prosecutors are seeking arrest warrants for Yoo Dae-gyun, the eldest son of the owner of the sunken ferry and his aide. Yoo was arrested Friday with 34-year-old Park Soo-kyung, who was helping him escape a massive manhunt. Both had been on the police's wanted list since the deadly ferry sinking in April that left more than 300 dead or missing. The Incheon prosecutor's office filed a request Sunday afternoon to detain the younger Yoo for questioning on charges that he embezzled about $9.6 million from Cheonghaejin Marine, the operator of the SUNKEN ferry and its affiliates. Moving on to the ongoing crisis in the Middle East, Hamas has just agreed to a new 24-hour ceasefire in Gaza after having rejected an extended truce with Israel on Saturday. The new ceasefire comes amid efforts over the weekend to put in place a temporary humanitarian truce for Gaza residents. Our Connie Lee has this report.
A new ceasefire is now in place in the Gaza Strip. Hamas agreed to a new 24-hour ceasefire on Sunday, shortly after Israel ended an earlier truce amid continuing attacks from the Palestinian militant group. Before this new truce, the Israeli cabinet had agreed on Saturday to extend a 24-hour humanitarian ceasefire at the request of the UN. Hamas had said it would not accept the ceasefire unless all Israeli troops left Gaza, but changed its stance once Israel launched its offensive. Earlier on Saturday, a ceasefire had been put in place to give residents time to assess the damage, store up on food, and recover their dead.
Humans are dead, houses are damaged, the trees are dead and the livestock is dead as well. They destroyed the land, the trees, everything. They totally destroyed it.
The latest turn of events comes amid a new report that North Korea and Hamas militants are working on a new arms deal. According to the UK daily The Telegraph, Hamas has paid North Korea hundreds of thousands of dollars for missiles and communications equipment to help its offensive against Israel. The report cites Western security sources who say Hamas is requesting new supplies of rockets to replace the missiles that were used against Israel in the past 2 weeks or so. More than 1,000 people in Gaza have died, mostly civilians, since the conflict began on July 8th. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
And now the weather. It looks like it's good news for people who are waiting to break out their new umbrellas, raincoats, or rain boots, because Monday in most parts of the country, heavy precipitation is expected. And now let's take a look at the weather conditions elsewhere around the globe. And that does it for us. Thank you for staying with us. Have a great start to your week.